Unless you want to try inviting.
Now that it's started. Okay, well, welcome to another Google session. Today we're going to be looking at calendars specifically, and then some of the other functionality related to that, such as creating events and also using a task list, a to-do list. So I'm just going to try inviting Andrea again, since we're having some issues with that. Let's see if it works. Before we jump in, my name is George Gake, by the way, and I am officially the Google Tech Mentor for faculty and staff, and I guess also students in this first year here on campus. So I'm the person that knows all the answers. Ha, ha, ha. No, basically, if you do have questions, hopefully I can answer them, and if not, I can try to find out the information for you. So you can, my email address is, if you just start typing GG, and then in your Gmail, you should be able to find me. And Gordon Gilchrist also has GG as the first two letters of his email address, but my name is George Gake. So you can send me an email or give me a call or whatever, and try to help you out. I do instruct as well on the side, so the rest of the ETC team is also able to be contacted, and we work together to try to solve issues. So if you haven't already, when you log in, if you can go to that shortened URL website that I have up on the board there, the top one, and just log your attendance here. And then the second one is a little survey for today. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to go through that, and then we'll look through the results there. So
you want to see the survey now?
Yeah, if you could do the survey as well, that would be great.
Oh. Open this address right here.
Yeah.
Type the. Did you do either one of those?
Yeah,
ones?
I already did my attendance, and the next time I'm going to
Okay.
or into.
You don't need the www.
Okay.
It's just GOO.gl.
Prize if you attend all
Slash.
sessions.
Absolutely. You'll get a
And then a lowercase p.
fuzzy bunny.
And then uppercase.
You know, we'll do that.
Oh no, I better make a note of that. Fuzzy bunny. Is it going? Is it not going to the right thing?
YouTube video.
Oh, that's bizarre.
Oh, it's lowercase d.
Oh, okay, let me do it again.
Okay.
Yeah, these are case sensitive.
Actually, now just
There we go.
Thank you.
So the survey, you see a little beach scene, and I was outside with my class at 8:30 this morning, and I tell you, it was cold. I was wishing that I was at the beach instead of out there, but this is where we are. Okay, so that survey just asks you a little bit about what your familiarity is so far with the calendar function. And so I'm just going to bring up the results here. Has everybody had a chance to fill in the survey part?
No.
Not quite yet. And by the way, that survey, if you haven't discovered Google Forms yet, that survey was done with Google Forms, and something that you can use in your class quite readily, and we will be doing a session on that later on. I guess I'm not going to be looking at the results right now. We'll look at them a little bit later. Okay. How many of you were in Andrea's session on Gmail? Okay. Several of you were. That's good. You heard her talk a little bit about groups and setting up groups. So we're going to start there with this one, even though we're talking about calendars. And I'll tell you why. When I first found out that we were switching to the Google Apps, I kind of was not very happy. I like my Microsoft Office products. I like Outlook and Word and Excel and all that. But then when I was approached to be the Google Tech Mentor, I kind of had to change my attitude, readjust my attitude. But so I kind of approached it with a little bit of fear and trepidation. But what I've discovered is that we don't compare apples to apples here. Like Microsoft Office doesn't compare to Google Apps directly across. If we try to do that comparison, then it can be quite frustrating. Because there are definitely a lot of things that Microsoft Office does that Google Apps won't do. However, there are also a lot of things that Google Apps does that Microsoft Office doesn't do. So the three main areas that I've discovered that make me happy about Google Apps, the first one is integration, and that ties back to the fact that we are looking at groups to begin with. Because all of the Google Apps are integrated with each other. So when I create a group for my Gmail account, then that group can be used in other Google Apps as well. And I'll show you that in a minute here. The second thing that Google Apps is really good for is for collaboration. Oh, how do you spell it? Collaboration. So, for example, if I want to work on a document and I want to get input from other people, it beats Microsoft Office hands down for being able to collaborate on documents or spreadsheets together and that kind of stuff. It has tools there that you don't find in Microsoft Office. And then the other thing that I like about Google Apps is access. So, basically, as long as I have an internet connection, I can get at my Google Apps, whereas I've had all kinds of grief starting a document here, going home to work on it, and I got to go in through the VPN, server's down, or I've even had, this was the worst this year, I did a project for the students. I did it at home. I came in, and when it connected to the network here, it overwrote what I'd done, all the work I'd done at home with the previous version that I'd been working on here. So I lost all the stuff I'd done at home. So because Google Apps are online, we have that accessibility anywhere we have internet connection, and we don't have to worry about that. So unfortunately, I set up my form for the survey in my own account, and I'm using a dummy account here for this training. So I will have to do the old-fashioned way and just have you raise your hands. How many of you have used the calendar, Google Calendar app already? Okay. How many of you have successfully created an event and invited people to it? Okay. And what about the tasks list? How many of you have used? Okay, good. So we will get going. Like I said, first thing we're going to look at really quickly is setting up a group that then allows us to integrate that group with other apps, including our calendar. So if I go to, when I'm in my Gmail, if I go to this mail dropdown and change it to contacts, then I can create a new group in here. So I'm just going to call this my Google group, for the fun of it. And if you guys want to try following along, feel free to do that. If you if you want to just watch, that's fine as well. So one of the frustrating things that I will admit about setting up these groups is that if I haven't actually received an email from the person yet, it's a little bit annoying to find them. So for example, if I have received an email, so I've gotten emails from Andrea, I start typing and right away it gives me a suggestion, and that happens to be Andrea's email, so I can quickly add her to this group. However, if it's somebody, do you have Fritz's email as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I add Andrea. I'm going to try to add Fritz, who hasn't emailed me, and nothing comes up yet. So I have to start typing, and it helps email address. So at oldscollege.ca. And then it should find her there and add her in. So we can create these groups. Maybe add. I'm going to add my own account as well. So there it is, ggeek@oldscollege.ca, and add that one in there. So I've got 3 people in this group. So now that I've got that group created, we're going to switch and go over to Calendar, and we'll show you some stuff. So most of you have already started using Calendar and you created an event. Something you perhaps did not know, which is pretty cool, is that if I want to create an event, I click on the date that this event is going to happen. So say we're going to invite people to our session on Thursday that starts at 9 a.m. So I can click in there, and it asks me what it is. And then I go and edit the event. However, if I say, I start typing in here, Google Calendar at 9. Actually, we'll make it a different time even, because it's already picked up at 9 o'clock. So we're going to say at 8:30 in Bell 947 and hit enter. Now we'll go and look at it, and look at what it's done. It's put in the Bell 947 as the where. I didn't pick up at 8:30 because I had selected the 9 o'clock slot, so that was my mistake. I was looking at the week view. So you can do this the most effectively if we look at the month view here. There's no times now on the days. So when I pick the day, then we'll maybe create a different one for Saturday. Same thing. So it's going to be a barbecue at 4:30 p.m. And I will add at my house. So by doing that, it automatically puts it at the time in, and it recognizes that you've also put a place in there. So rather than having to type what it is and then click edit event and fill it out, you can do things a little bit faster by just typing all of that information in there, and it's smart enough to recognize the time and the place and put it in for you. So now, because I created that group, I can go to groups and start typing the name of my group, and there I have my Google group that I just created, and all the people are there, and away it goes. So similar to what Andrea showed you with sending an email to a group, I can still, it doesn't just show me the group like Outlook does. When you create those distribution lists in Outlook and you add them, you have to kind of click twice in order to expand it to see everybody in there. It shows me everybody who's in here, and because Fritz is already here, and this one, she doesn't have to come again on Thursday, although you would get 2 fuzzy bunnies if you came to all of them. Oh, this is the barbecue one. Wow. I won't remove you from my barbecue. Maybe I don't want to show up at my own barbecue, so I can remove the invite to myself. So you can continue adding or removing people from, even though you use the group as the first selection for who you're inviting.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
So we've definitely been able to get this to work. We've had the odd time though where someone was in Chrome, they had created their group, they had gone into their calendar and typed it in, and Google wasn't recognizing it, it wasn't seeing the group. We then had to go out of Chrome and try Internet Explorer or Firefox, do this exact same thing, and then we started typing in the group name and up it came. We went back to
Really?
Chrome and it could see it again.
And then, okay.
So for some reason, it wasn't seeing it from mail back to calendar, but it did once we switched browsers. So sometimes if you're running into some little glitchy things just don't seem to be working right, sometimes just switching a browser seems to help. So that was the one time I've seen that not work, where you do it in mail and go to the calendar and how come the names aren't showing up? But yeah, so that's just something to keep in mind with anything really to do with mail and calendar and all of this, is that can always be sometimes the first place to go is try. We suggest Chrome. Chrome should work for all of them, but the odd time, probably Firefox would be your next one to try, and that you should see the changes happen.
So maybe we should do that for the invites.
Maybe that's what it is.
So one other little tip with these events is that once I've got them in my calendar, if I realize, oops, that was the wrong day, or something changes and I have to reschedule it, I can just click and hold and drag it around to a different date. And then it updates and asks if we want to resend our invitations. Okay, so that's the events, and they are typically, you use an event, to create something that you're going to invite other people to. It's not something that you do just for yourself. So we do have, though, a task list that can be integrated into your calendar, and that's for stuff just for you. So you should, if you go and expand My Calendars on the side of your calendar, you should see tasks right there. So it should be already added. If they can overlay all the calendars and see before you even create the event, and see where there's an open space for everybody. And it won't, well, you'll see that if you're looking at their calendar as well, but I don't think it actually gives you a notice that this person has a conflict. They would get that when they get the invitation. They get a notice that there's a conflict with something already in their calendar. Yeah, I should have mentioned, if you have questions, feel free to interrupt me at any time as we go through this. So,
so Paul, do you know how you could search for someone's calendar though to see if?
I'm going to show them
you're
that.
getting into that. Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
I'm going to show them that
Okay.
in a minute here. With the tasks, so by default it doesn't have any color assigned to it, so you can go to the little drop down beside, so you have to move your mouse over there in order to have it appear beside tasks, and then you can pick a color to use for your tasks. So what happens then is when you've got a task assigned to yourself in your calendar, it will appear with a different color than your regular events, not that kind of stuff that you have there. So there's several different things that we can do with tasks besides having them just show up. So now that I've got it enabled with my calendar, I can create a new task, and by clicking the little plus sign over here on the right hand side, and then I can type in the details of what it is. Maybe I need to edit the video for this Hangout. By clicking on the little arrowhead, I can go and add additional details. So if there's going to be a due date, I need to have that done by the end of the week. So October 3rd, I can add in notes, blah, 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 blah. I can have more than one task list, so I'm not going to, we're not going to look at that part today, but I could, if I had more than one task list created here, I could move it to a different task list. And then once I'm done, I just click anywhere else to go back, and it's stored there, and now you can see it appears in my calendar. Once I've completed it, I can check it off, and it gets crossed out in my list, and it also gets crossed out on my calendar, so I know that I've completed that. I don't have to worry about it anymore. We can also set it up so that they disappear when we completed them. So you can see here under actions, I can clear a completed task. This is a good little list to take note of here. Notice that I can indent and unindent, so I can actually create basically, a project workflow. If I know step 1 and then step 2 can only be completed after step 1 is done, my step 2 can be indented so that I know, okay, this is the primary task, and once I've completed that, I've got another one associated with it that needs to be completed. So for example, if I wanted to create another one here, I'll maybe uncheck the edit video one, and I'll say post edited video, and I can do the details of that. So that's going to be on Monday the 6th, and now I'm done that one. So go back to list. I can grab it and move it. Come on. There we go. So in order to move the order of your list, you have to grab it on the left-hand side of the task. So I can move it below edit video, and now I can go and indent that one. So, and you can see now it's indented underneath my edit video one. So it's a way of organizing your tasks so that you can keep track of which ones have to be done before you can do other ones, etc. One other thing we can do with tasks, sometimes we get an email and there's a task associated with that. So if I go back to my email here, let's say that we've got a ACFA social event here. This email here, if I want to create a task for myself out of this, I select it, I go up to more, and I can now go add to tasks. So that puts it into my task list. So notice here, I'm in mail, but I still, now that I've activated my tasks, I've got a little pop-up here with my tasks. And it's now been added. You can see the subject of it is the actual email, and then there's a little related email button down here. So if I go back to my inbox, I forget what email that was created from, and I want more details for this task, I can now click the related email, and it brings back that email for me to show me. And now that it's in my task list, I can go to the arrow and edit it, add a due date, other notes, etc. for all of that. So a handy way of taking an email that I've gotten from somebody and automatically turning it into a task for myself. Any questions on the tasks there? All right. Then we want to be able to usually see some of our colleagues' calendars. So there's several different ways that we can get access to somebody else's calendar. Down here under other calendars, you can see that there's a slot here to add a coworker's calendar. So if I start putting in Andrea's email here, it finds it right away, and I can add that to the list. So now you can see that her email appears under my other calendar, or sorry, her calendar appears under my other calendars. And I can go and choose a different color for that since it's the same color as one of the other ones right now. So maybe we'll do a mauve. You look like a mauve type of person. So now anything that is related to Andrea's calendar appears here in this calendar with that color. Because she hasn't shared her calendar with me, all I see is when she's busy. So that's one way of seeing conflicts from different people's calendars. And it can get, especially in the month view, it can get quite crowded. But if I was going to create an event and I wanted to actually see everybody's, I'd probably go to the day view, and then I can see better everybody else's calendars and figure out, okay, is there a slot here where we can actually fit this meeting in. So right now I've got my calendar showing, and it's in that orangey color, and Andrea's showing. So in order to see the different calendars, we can just click in the little colored box, or if we haven't assigned a color to it, it's just a white box to the left of the names, and bring up different people's calendars to see there. So that's one way of being able to see at least when they're busy. But we can also request further access. So if it's somebody that you work very closely with and you want to actually see what's going on in their lives, they can share their calendars with you and give you access to the details of that. So for example, in my calendar here, I've got a big share button up at the top right. And when I click that, it opens up the settings for sharing. It should open up the settings for sharing. That's interesting. That's a first. Let's try it one more time here.
And they're only going to see I think the share, they don't have their Google Plus activated, so that share button might not.
Okay. Okay. So then let's go instead to our settings for our calendar and see if we can go from here. So click on the drop down there and pick settings. Go to my calendars section, and you can see it shows me the current calendar that I'm looking at. And then to the right here, we have the sharing capabilities. So if you're not using Google Plus, then this is the way you can get into the sharing. So down here, if somebody has requested that they want to see the details of my calendar and I agree with them, I can enter their email address here and add that person. And I can decide, if I go to the drop down, I can decide how much I want to let them. So, for my wife, I have to give her the ability to change and manage my meetings so that she can run my life for me. But you can decide whether you want to just show that you're free or busy, whether you want to give them the details of the events, or whether you want to actually allow them to add events and edit events that you have in your calendar. This brings up an interesting option as well, because we can create calendars to manage other things, like a room schedule as an example. So if I'm going to create a calendar for a room, then I can make that public, and then everybody can see that calendar. And I don't have to go and specifically, invite people to it. But if I want to only allow some people to edit it, then I would do that down here as well. Invite them and give them editing capabilities so that they can go and look for a time slot in that room and pick it for whenever they need to use it. By default, because you're part of Olds College, by default, this setting is already selected for your calendar so that anybody can see when you're free or busy in the Olds College domain. So does that answer your question about how you can get access to other people's calendars? Okay, good. Any other questions about getting other people's calendars or sharing your calendar with other people?
Can I go into somebody else's calendar and book appointments for them?
If they've given you permissions to do that.
And
yes.
then do you have to click on their specific calendar to be able to do that? Or can I do that from, because I keep trying to book in students with our counselor's calendar, but
It ends up on
seem
yours
to,
instead
yeah,
of-
it's
Yeah. So if you go back to the calendar, so you've got their calendars appearing here.
Yeah.
I think in the create, you choose which calendar you want it to go
to when I do the
Yeah.
event. Okay.
So go if you went to edit event, and then so under calendar, underneath where it says
Yeah.
video call.
So if you
Oh,
if somebody else is giving you permissions, you should be able to pick it from
Yeah,
there.
it's okay. That's easy. Thanks.
So there are some other calendars that you may want to have access to as well. If we go into our settings here, and go to calendars, we can import somebody else's calendar. So if you know, even if they're using Microsoft Outlook, they can export out their calendar to a CSV file, and you can import it into yours. Or if maybe you're at home, you're using Outlook for your personal life, and you want to be able to add some of that stuff to your Olds College calendar, you can do that as well. And down here, under the other calendar section, you can see we've got a bunch of other ones that we can add. So I've added the week numbers, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute, and also holidays in Canada. Up here, you can browse interesting calendars. So to the right there, under other calendars, if you click that, it shows you, a whole bunch of calendars that are out there that you can add to your calendar. So for example, holidays in Canada, I can add that by finding it in the list and then clicking to either subscribe, or because I've already subscribed to it, then my option is set to unsubscribe. If you're a sports fan, you can click on the sports one and it loads up a bunch of different calendars that are available under different sports. So for example, a hockey calendar, you can add NHL calendar there. Under more, we've got the week numbers one. So that one counts down the number of weeks to the end of the year. So I've got that one added on mine. You can see there's other ones available there to add as well. So I'm going to go back to my calendar. So when I add that week one, interesting, where did they go? There should be a little blue square in Sundays telling me the week number. It disappeared. This might be one of those cases where you have to unsubscribe and then resubscribe. Let's try that and see if that brings them up. Yeah, there they are on Mondays. Okay, for any of these calendars that you have, you can set up reminders and notifications. So even if it's not your calendar, but you want to get a notification and say, let's say, you know, if somebody that you're working with want to know when they have some meetings, you can set up to get notifications for that. So there's, again, a couple of different ways that we can do this. If I go to the calendars that I have here showing up on my left-hand side, and I hover over my calendar, get a little drop down, I can select that, and then go to reminders and notifications. So I can set up how I want to be reminded and what I want to be reminded of. So I was playing around with this one and had it set to give me a 10-minute warning and then a 1-minute warning. So you can see there I've got a pop-up set to show up at 10 minutes before an event, and then another pop-up to show up at 1 minute before an event. So these are default for every event in your calendar. But then you can also go and make changes to a specific one. So for example, I have a meeting with Gordon Gilchrist every second Tuesday. So I have it set up to remind me the day before rather than just 10 minutes before. Because it's at 8 o'clock in the morning, and if I decide to sleep in on a Tuesday, 10 minutes before wouldn't give me enough time. So I don't sleep in on Tuesdays. I get a notification a day before that to remind me of that. So down here, we can also decide whether we want to, for example, if an event is canceled, do I want to get a notification of that? If something has changed, do I want to get a notification, etc. And we can decide whether we want to get it via email or we can actually get a text message sent to our cell phone as well. If you're going to do that, you have to set up your mobile phone down here in this area. One very interesting one that I haven't tried yet, but this daily agenda one, if I decide that I want that, what happens then, as it says here, every day at 5 a.m., I get an email with my agenda for the day. And of course, we're all up at 5 a.m. busily getting ready for the day, so it'd be a handy time to get that.
You have small children.
Mine are grown.
I was saying, talk about things like sleeping in and not being able to.
Yes, fortunately mine have are out on their own now. But actually, yeah, I have a son and a daughter, and my son would sleep in much longer than I do. So that one, like I say, you can get an email sent automatically to you with your agenda for every day. So any questions about any of this stuff that we've covered so far? Oh, I should show you if I go back to the calendar there. So that's for your own personal calendar. Okay. And then down here, if I go to one of the other calendars that I've added, the same thing. So there's my other calendar. If I go to the drop down, there's reminders and notifications, and I can go in and set up how I want that to be for somebody else's calendar. If I want to be reminded of holidays, I can even get that sent to me as well. So we are in these sessions, I mean, because we have limited time, we are scratching the surface in many cases of just what all you can do with these different apps. So if you do have other things you want to know, you're welcome to send us emails, and we can do research. Or like Andrea's pointed out, most of the stuff we're showing you here, we have just learned by Googling ourselves. like to say that there was some kind of a secret boot camp where we were all taken to and sworn to secrecy, but that's not the case. We discover most of the stuff by asking questions in Google and trying to figure out or find out what the answers are to them. So the last thing I want to show you today is some of the labs that come with the calendar that are kind of cool. So if you've been to any of the Google sessions, labs means functionality that is there that may or may not stay in the future. And like Andrea said, any of the stuff that we've used so far, we haven't seen disappear off of the labs. So, and in some cases, it eventually gets incorporated into the app as part of their basic functionality. So there's two ways of getting at it. Here, I can go to my settings and pick the settings option and then go to labs, or I can go to the settings and you'll see there's actually labs right on the drop down that comes up. So one of the ones I like very much is this first one, because I don't have young kids anymore, so I'm not up at 2 a.m. So I don't need my calendar to show me 2 a.m. So I can enable hiding morning and night. If I enable that, as you can see, I've already got that enabled here. Then when I go and look at my day, it should only start at 6 a.m. So I can collapse the rest of that. So you can see now I just get a slot that says 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. If I do need to have, maybe I'm having a late night party and I want to have something in there, then I can click on it to expand it. I can also adjust when my day starts. So by expanding that slot there, I get a little bar appearing that I can slide up or down to decide when I want my day to start, and the same thing with the evening. I can click and then use the slider to adjust when that's hidden. So that's one of the handy labs to have in there. Another one that I'm still trying to figure out is this gentle reminders. So I've got that enabled, and right now when a reminder comes, I'm just getting a little window appearing on my screen with a little ding, and supposedly if I'd have that disabled, I should get obnoxious reminders, but I haven't gotten any obnoxious reminders with it disabled, so I'm not exactly sure what it's doing. But
well, if you're already on a web page and you have your calendar, like say you have another tab open and calendar's kind of running in the background, if you're say working on a Moodle course or just website or whatever, it will take you from where you are and pull you over to calendar. But only if you're on a web.
Oh, okay.
So if you're working in Word or something that's not web-based, you won't get any
Okay.
sort of notifications or pop-ups. So
that's probably why.
Yeah. So if you don't do anything,
I left it on my calendar as well when I was testing it.
Mhm.
So with this enabled, then rather than actually pulling you to your calendar, it just gives you a little box appearing on your screen.
and then the box will pop up in whatever you're working on. Like
And
if you're
just-
not in calendar, or like as if it's just in the background, but you're working in Word or Excel or something not Google related, it will just do a little pop-up and it will stay.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Another very handy one is this events attachment or event attachments. So when you enable this, then if you're creating an event, let's say it's a meeting and you want to distribute the agenda for the meeting to everybody, you can do that as you create the event. So you enable event attachments, you go and create your event, you attach the agenda, and when they get their invitation to the event, they'll also have the attachment sent to them. So that one's a handy one. So you don't have to do that in 2 separate steps. And then finally, another one that I like to have is the next meeting. So enable that one and then save your changes. So the save is either at the bottom of the screen or at the top.
Who's my one-on-one with that one. Especially if you get a lot of invitations from lots of different people, then it will put their name
Okay.
right on the calendar. So
I'm not as popular. So.
yeah.
So by enabling those, you have to save, and then it takes you back to the calendar. So this next meeting one appears here at the bottom right of your calendar then, and it shows me hey, I don't have anything up for 2 days and 20 hours. What am I doing here? So you've got that appearing there. Okay, so any questions on any of this stuff? All
I
right.
missed last week's meeting. Do I just go online now and find it?
Yes.
So on our, in the original email that sent out like the schedule, there is a link that goes to our ETC channel, and both the Monday and the Thursday sessions have been recorded. So I think I talked about pretty much the same thing. So you can pick, they're pretty much the same. So pick either one. Thank you.
And then next week is Google Drive and the different apps that are associated with Google Drive.
Like docs and sheets and slides and stuff like that. Did you show them how they can create more calendars within?
No, I didn't.
So if you did have multiple, like maybe you wanted to put personal things within your calendar, you can add like under where it says My Calendars, it just has Google Mentor and Tasks. So if he clicks on the My Calendar, you can create a new one. So then you can kind of have sub calendars within your own. So it's, yeah. Yeah. So if you wanted to maybe put some personal things in your work calendar, then you can give permissions to different kind of levels of events. So
yeah, and once you create that, then it appears, because you're creating it as a separate calendar, it appears under My Calendars instead of other calendars.
you just have to be careful though when you go into create that you say to put it in the personal time calendar option, because it will automatically default to always your account, your calendar. Like if you went now into create, George, you would see the, or sorry, go like create an actual event.
Oh, okay. Right. So I want to create one, and I want to make sure
Yes.
that I'm putting it into
Yeah.
the proper calendar.
So if you were working on a project or something where certain people needed to know, like if you wanted to book time in, then you could do that, and then you could share that calendar, just that specific calendar with certain people. They could see then all the events, and then you could keep your personal account just as free and busy. So it kind of gives you the ability to share different levels of different calendars with different people. So, and then you can always, and then within your calendar, like even though he has Google Mentor as dark green, you can make specific items some like different colors. That's just, and then how you do colors though does not reflect how other people see the colors. So if just because I make my calendar, like he made it that movie color for me, mine is completely, I pick my own colors on my end. So it's entirely just how you view it or how the colors show up.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And have a good rest of the day.
So we will be sending you another little feedback. We might wait and send them all out at the end of the week. So it might come today or it might come on Thursday, but we'll just ask you for a bit of feedback
on this session.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, thanks.